any chance that the Nets have told Durant, forget it, you're staying here, we want you? Has that been a possibility at all?
I think the Nets' position at the moment, Rich, and I mean, I really have to say at the moment because this is somewhat volatile, although I think it's dormant right now, but I think their position is we can't get our price for you, so we're going to try to run this back and see if we can do it better. There is precedent for something like this. 2007, Kobe Bryant asked for a trade. In fact, if you remember, he went on Stephen A. Smith's show on national television and said the words, something to the effect of, I never am going to play for the Lakers again. I've asked them for a trade. And now at that time, Kobe, he might as well have had a 4-year contract because he had a no-trade clause in his contract. He was able to veto any trade, and the Lakers went out and looked for offers, specifically with the Bulls. And they said, okay, Kobe, we're going to trade you to the Bulls for these players. And Kobe said, no, you can't trade me for those players because then when I go to Chicago, we won't be good enough. And they went around and around and around like this throughout the summer. And eventually they said, Kobe, you're under contract. We can't find a trade. Let's just try to work this out. And Kobe came back, and later they traded for Pau Gasol, and they went to the next 3 finals. So I think, there is precedent. Now, the reality, Rich, is that Kevin Durant was the one who started this. He was the one who requested the trade. It is he who will decide whether or not he remains pleased with the situation. But it's the same sort of deal. No team feels ready to offer the price that the Nets want for Durant. And so, again, if you can't get your price, I think it's common if you were trying to sell something that had extreme value to you and you couldn't get your price, you're more likely to just pull it off the market as opposed to making a bad deal. So I think that's where the Nets are right now. We don't know where Durant is on that. Durant is tweeting about things that are not related to his situation. He is not sharing where his feelings are on that. But I think that's where the Nets are right now. They are not getting the offers that they deem worth his value. And so I think they're like, look, we've got you under contract for 4 years. Let's try to see if we can work this out in September.
And then, of course, in the interim, a lot of folks, Brian Windhorst, attempting to CSI to hit the DNA and on the decision by Durant to ask for the trade out of Brooklyn, and that being made public 2 days after Kyrie Irving opts back in with Brooklyn. And there's a lot of connecting those dots that Kyrie says, I'm back, and then Durant says, I'm out. Is that correlated in your mind? Are those two things mutually exclusive, or is that a direct line? Kyrie says, I want back, and Durant says, I want out. What do you think?
Well, one of the things that we do know, Rich, is that Durant and Kyrie were talking during Kyrie's negotiation for his contract. We know this because Kevin said as much. In his last comments on the situation, he did a podcast on his podcast network and said he was communicating with Kyrie, although he said he wasn't telling him what to do. He was standing back. So I don't know for sure, okay, to be 100% clear, I don't know for sure. I didn't tap their phone line. But I doubt that Kevin's trade demand came as a surprise to Kyrie Irving. But I do think that Kyrie was worried about making the best deal for himself. And considering there was no way he was going to get that $37 million out on the market, not so much because nobody valued him, it was just that there wasn't teams with cap space this summer who needed a player like him or were in position to go for a player like him. I think he made his mind up relative to his own situation. But having said that, I don't think that the Nets do something with Kyrie Irving until they know what's happening with Durant. Because at the end of the day, if the smoke clears and they still have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on their roster, right, they've got a very formidable team. Now, whether they can hold it together is a different question.
Yes.
And the crazy thing about this is, Rich, I know that this statement is going to sound wild I'm about to make, but I actually like the Nets off season to this point. They have added a couple of nice veterans. They traded for Royce O'Neal from the Jazz,
yes,
who was the exact type of player they need, who is a defensive three-point shooter. They're going to get healthier. Some of their players who were out last year are going to be healthier coming back. They're going to have great shooting. on their team. I think they could be pretty darn good if they could hold it all together. Of course, the holding it all together is the problem.